All right, so you are looking for the usual deal. There should be a tasks list posted on Canvas. Today is going to work a lot like our previous lesson. The goal is to get through 2 presentations. So you're looking for either an assignment or an announcement titled Task for U5L4. I do have a short do now that I'd like you to work on, so I'm just going to time us for 2 minutes. It's a 1 minute long video, not even, but it's a exemplary Rube Goldberg that we'll discuss once you've watched it. So just go ahead and click on that video link there and watch that, and we'll come back together in 2 minutes. All right, was that an exemplary run for Rube Goldberg machine? Yeah, I thought it was entertaining. Pretty much nothing worked. So just know that your goal for your final machine is to not have a video like that, but to have one that will hopefully run unassisted. All you do is start it, and then it should run all the way to the end. And remember how long it should take at a minimum?
15 seconds.
15 seconds is a time requirement I'd like to set. And I think that's where the challenge is going to lie for some of you, because your simple machines were great, but they were all very fast. And so you want to think about either adding in more steps or having something like a slower ball roll or one of those like unwinding tethers. There are different things you can do that will buy you a little more time. But you want to keep it entertaining too. It shouldn't just be 10 seconds of a ball slowly rolling down a ramp. I don't think anyone's going to want to watch that. So I think it's more adding in steps and things like that that makes it more challenging, but also makes for a better machine. So if you look at the tasks list on Canvas, I just have a little Rube Goldberg check-in. I posted a link to the description again. Your goal for this week, leading into next week, is to start building your steps, right? What are the pieces you need to attach to get the 4 tasks done that you have chosen to do? You can, again, select any 4 tasks from the list of 8 in the project description. Those aren't the only 4 tasks your machine needs to do though, right? Your machine can have lots of parts to it, but in the grading, I'm just going to be checking off at least 4 of those things that you've done, but you could do all 8 if you really wanted to. It's got to run for at least 15 seconds and it's got to run unassisted. So you need to start it and everything should work perfectly from there. So that's the goal to achieve. I know some of you have contacted me about not being able to get permanent bases or have something that you can really nail or screw into or use tools. So that's okay, right? You can still make a machine more like your simple machine where you're stacking things up, but you have to still meet these requirements. It has to take 15 seconds. It has to run unassisted. Those are kind of the main things I'm looking for. The more contained it is and the more nailed down and secure your machine is, the easier it's going to be for you to achieve 15 seconds and running unassisted. There is an assignment for next week. Again, it's called the Rube Goldberg Machine Early Stage. It's another picture submission. I just want you to submit a picture of whatever you have for your machine so far. So this could vary, right? You could maybe only have the frame and maybe only 2 of the steps set up. Maybe your machine is pretty much already done. Just take a photo of wherever you're at and we can use that then to move forward as we get into the final weeks and when we'll be actually sharing the Flipgrid videos of our machines. And please let me know if you need guidance, help, anything like that. I'll do my best to keep responding to emails as they come to me. Any questions on Rube Goldberg stuff? Okay, again, our goal today is to get through 2 lessons. And so let's dive right in. Our first one today is going to be on the task list. I got them both listed. We're going to hear from Garrett and Kevin on inner planets, and then we'll hear from Addie and Amanda on outer planets. So Garrett and Kevin, or at least Garrett is here. You feel like you're ready to go?
Yep.
Any special instructions on your links?
No.
No? Okay. All right, there should be a post on the discussion. So I've got a link there to the Science2C lesson share discussion. Going to time us for 20 minutes and we'll come back together to discuss the lesson. Go for it. Great. All righty. And we're like right on time. That's the 20-minute mark pretty much. So have most of you been able to fill in the feedback on either the discussion board or through the Flipgrid link? If not, it's good to take a moment to do that now, or again, you can just do that as homework right after class. Garrett, have you had a chance to look at the 2 forms, the making lesson form and the test collection form?
I'm looking at one right now.
Yep. Yeah. So just make sure you fill those in either as homework or right now. So, all right, kids, feedback. What was something new or interesting you learned?
I didn't know that Martian soil is red because of the iron minerals in the ground. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, it's like they often sometimes call it the rusty planet because that's kind of what it is. It's just iron. How many of you have seen The Martian? The Matt Damon. He plants potatoes in the Martian soil along with like human feces. There's a couple reasons. The movie's great and it's actually pretty scientifically accurate. But one of the issues is that the Martian soil would have been full of iron, and it's also full of what's called perchlorate, which is essentially chlorine. It would have been toxic to the plants. They would not have grown in Martian soil. So that he would have had to have somehow gotten the chemicals out of it. But yeah, that was pretty interesting. Nothing else new or interesting?
I liked that. I didn't know that Venus was the hottest planet because like you would think that Mercury would be since it's closest. But yeah, that was fun to learn about.
Yeah, you guys made an interesting distinction between, hottest being like relating to climate and weather, right? Because Venus technically doesn't really even have an atmosphere, and so it doesn't have weather or climate, right? Yeah. So our perception of hottest planet, yeah, Venus wouldn't fit, even though yeah, you'd think being closest to the sun, but it's interesting too. So or no, sorry, Venus was the hottest one, right? Mercury is you think it would be Mercury, but it's actually Venus. And it's because anyone catch what is like more than 95% of Venus's atmosphere made out of? What gas is present? You remember what's really good at absorbing heat? We learned all about it in the first section of our course here.
CO2.
Yeah, and so I think this is also something a lot of scientists point to as sort of a bit of a model for global warming, right? That it is a clear indicator that the more CO2 that's present in an atmosphere, the more warmth gets absorbed. However, anyone catch what other planet has a lot of CO2 in its atmosphere? Ours does, but then what's after us? What's the planet we're all hoping to move to eventually?
Mars.
Mars also has a lot of CO2, and yet Mars is really really cold. And as you guys pointed out, it's because it's just a little bit further away from the sun, and it doesn't absorb as much solar radiation. It also has a super super thin atmosphere, and again, this is what I come back to the. I'm a big fan of The Martian, the movie and the book, but this is another one of the areas where it's not quite accurate. That Mars's atmosphere is so thin that in the beginning of the movie, if you remember, there's a storm that hits them, and that's why he gets left behind, is because there's this big windstorm that knocks everything over. That would never happen on Mars. Like a storm on Mars would be like a barely windy day on Earth. It wouldn't really affect you or us. It would be nothing compared to what we see on Earth, which has a much thicker atmosphere, but still pretty cool. Yeah, I thought the thing about Venus, that's what I didn't know, was that, that Venus rotates on its axis slower than it takes to go around the sun. So that's, one day is longer than a year on Venus, which would be an interesting thing to think about. So, cool. Right. Any questions or anything that came to anyone's mind? For me, it was just the fact that Venus rotates the other way, which I thought was interesting. Not in its orbit, right? The orbit is the same, but in terms of the planet's rotation on its axis. Garrett, did you actually read any of the theories about why that is, or is there a
Yeah.
prevailing theory?
There's like scientists argue about it. There's a lot of different reasons. Some say the atmosphere. Some say it's the planet's shape or just the way it was made.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that stuff. I wonder if it's a core thing or like because yeah, I know magnetic poles and stuff play a big role with that, and a lot of planets have an iron core. I wonder if it's different for Venus, but kind of interesting. So, what do you guys think of the tools? I like that you guys used like a solar system map for your Prezi and then zoomed in on the planets. I thought that was kind of a cool way of doing it. Um, But I always want to see more images, so that's always my thing, is like seeing images of the surface of the planets and stuff. That was a good use of like a home image, which I thought was great. All right, any other feedback for Garrett and Kevin? All right, well, thanks, guys. Now that we've learned about the inner planets, we're going to move on to the outer planets, I believe is next, right? Addie and Amanda, are your links ready to go?
Yeah, just a few quick things. For the podcast, which is the assignment, we weren't able to shoot it all in one take. So when you open the website, you'll have multiple different slides. Make sure that you start from slide 1 and then let it play all the way through. And then there's a right arrow on the bottom right corner, and that will let you go to the next one. So
Cool.
just make sure they're in order. And we're having a little bit of technical difficulty with the Kahoot right now. It won't edit for some reason. So we will work on that and post a new link. So look out for a new link.
I'm
Yeah.
getting the message that you need to create an account just to view your podcast.
Really?
Should we go ahead and do that?
Let me double check the website right now.
See if there's a way to share it publicly. The same thing, if you're having trouble with the Kahoot, it might help to kind of just log out. Because I know sometimes when we share Kahoots and things like that, it gets you on a different profile or something. There's some weird stuff that happens. So it might help to log out, log back in again.
Okay.
Same link. It's fixed.
Yeah, and let me try the, did you guys use a VoiceThread?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. Okay. There's a new link in the chat for the podcast.
Yeah, it wants me to sign in too. Cool. So yeah, I just got to hit refresh then on the discussion board.
Or on the Zoom chat, sorry.
Oh. Nice.
It still says I need to sign in.
Yeah, here, let's see what sign in.
Okay, hold on.
It might be easier if you just screen share the podcast.
Yeah, through the
Let me try one more thing. I just made it public, so hopefully that will work.
Okay.
Let's try this link.
Right.
That works.
Perfect.
Awesome. Cool. Okay, so work through the VoiceThread, like you said, try to go in order, and then the assessment is a Kahoot that you said you're still trying to spiff up?
No, I fixed it.
Cool. Okay.
It's the same link, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll just use the link on the discussion board. And is that also one that we should come back together as a group to play, or is it set to individual? Do you know?
As a group.
As a group? Okay, so maybe we'll come back together with about 4 or 5 minutes to spare. I'll go through the lesson. When I'm done, I'll see if the rest of us are done, and we'll come back together. Sound good? Cool. All right, thanks for working through the technicalities. Thank you very much to the 2 groups who shared their lessons today. We will continue in this exact same format on Friday as well. Your only homework is to make sure that you have answered those 3 feedback questions on either the discussion board as a reply or on the Flipgrid that I created for each of these groups. So if you didn't do that during the lesson, make sure you complete that as homework. For those of you who had your lessons worked through, make sure you have filled out both of those forms. And remember that for the test collection form, I only need 1 multiple choice and 1 free response question per group, right? It's not per person, it's just per pair. So you can work with each other to figure out what that's like as well. I'll be building the test off that. If you have not gone yet, make sure your lesson is posted and ready to go. Next week, it looks like we will be hearing from Andres and Andres on what makes a planet suitable for life, and Kyle and Owen on Earth's moon. That's who's up next. All right, sound good, everybody? Okay, thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you.
I'll hang out if anyone's got questions or wants to chat about anything.